When you own a car, chipped paint is kind of a fact of life. Here I have a chip in my driver's side door that was caused by a small fender bender that wasn't worth getting fixed professionally. So today I'm just going to patch that up using a Honda paint pen. So if you don't know what color paint you have, what your exact paint code is, and who does, right? You can look on the inside of the driver's door on the sticker there, and there's, I think it's like a 5 or 6 digit code that will tell you what paint you need. So you can Google that number, Honda paint code, and then that number, and it'll tell you what color you need. So I got this one off Amazon. Duplicolor I think makes them. This one is a genuine Honda. I paid a little bit more, but I just like knowing that I have the best quality possible. So for this spot right here, let's set our paint pen there to the side. The first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that it's somewhat clean, which my car is not. So I'm going to just start with a little bit of water and a rag and just wipe the dirt off there. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Now this paint chip is new enough that it has not really started to rust yet. It chipped down to bare metal, but yeah, thankfully it hasn't started to rust. Grab a paper towel here. With all the dirt off, I'm just going to give it a coat of rubbing alcohol just to wipe down with that, just to make sure there's no grease or oil or wax. That's another thing. You don't want anything on that bare metal that could possibly inhibit the new paint adhering as it should. Just give your paint pen a shake, make sure all the lids are on tight, and just give everything a good shake for 20 to 30 seconds. Just make sure everything is not separated in there, make sure it's mixed well. All right, so this is well mixed. Now, like I said, I have the Honda brand here. I can't speak for the Duplicolor, but I'll run through how this pen works. So in the top here, this is an abrasive tip that's going to be for prepping the surface, which I'll use here in a second. If you just pop that off, that's just a friction fit, pop that off. There you can see there's a paint pen tip, just a real fine tip. I'm going to snap that back on and hold the body with the pointy end up, and you can twist this off and you have a small brush there. Spin that back on, still holding it pointy side up. You can grab a hold of the very base here and pull the body off, and that's going to reveal the clear top coat. So a pretty comprehensive little system here. I'm going to grab my rag here that has my alcohol on it and just make sure that abrasive tip is cleared off. So this little 4-fingered tab on the top here, you can just take that, just kind of leg by leg and push it up, and that'll eventually come off right there. So that gives you free access to that abrasive tip, which I'm just going to take over everything. There's no rust here. Let's zoom in. Yeah, there's no rust here, but at least that I can see. I'm still just going to run that tip over. Well, it's kind of a nails on the chalkboard sound. Yeah, I'm not sure that did much, but well, it's done now. So I'm just going to take that alcohol swab again. Just clean every last little bit out. You want to make sure the alcohol is completely dried, and it doesn't take long. It evaporates fairly quickly. So that's dried. I'm just going to take this out here and just wipe off the excess paint. You want just a nice thin coat. You don't want any chance of it running on you. And just dab that on. Better to go too light than too heavy for your first coat. Now, the brush isn't very fine. Tell you what, I want to try that paint pen. I expected that brush to be a little bit finer than what it is. So I'm just going to take, got a chunk of wood here, that I'm just going to take and depress that pen, and that really flows. Whew. Well, it's not very fine either, so I'll just take that without depressing it. You really need to depress it to get any paint to flow, but you depress it much at all and it just floods. So let's put our cap back on. There's still a little corner here that didn't get completely coated. You want to wait between coats, between the 2 coats of paint or the top coat. So you want to make sure you have your first coat as covered as possible. All right, while that's drying, let's go over to the CRV, and there's a couple spots on the hood that are rusted, chipped from like a tractor trailer kicking up a stone, and they're actually rusted. So let's go over there and prep those, put our first coat on that. So here on the CRV, we've got a chip on the hood here, and then it's rusted a little bit, which is not gonna allow that new paint to adhere. So I'm just gonna take my flat blade screwdriver and just run around in that chip a little bit so we get all that rust off. It's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you're not usually taking a screwdriver to your paint job, but it's one of those steps that it takes to make it a little worse before it can get better. Whether you're welding or painting or really anything like this, the preparation is the key to the whole job. If you don't have the surface prepared well to where that paint can stick, then you might as well not even try. It's just not going to last long term. I'm a little bit concerned about the edge where the old paint or the existing paint chips off and stops. There's a pretty thick layer there. I don't really want to be packing rust up underneath that. I'm going to get in there with the corner of my screwdriver. You can see it starting to get a little bit shiny. And if there's any edges there where the existing paint is peeling, you want to just go ahead and peel that the rest of the way. Here I have a little pick. It's got a real fine point on it. I'm just going to use that to try to get in that edge. Right where the old meets the new, I'm seeing a little bit of rust in there still. I just want to get the last of that out. It's going to be a pretty vulnerable spot. All right, now we can use our rubbing alcohol again. Just get that as clean as possible. Kind of flush it out. Turn over to a new side of my rag here. All right, once that rubbing alcohol dries, we're ready to paint it up. I'm gonna lay my towel out here, that way I don't drip any paint where I don't want it. There we go. Same deal, we can just lift our top off. Now I think I have a little more control with this brush as opposed to the dispenser tip. So I'm going to just dab most of that off and just dab a little bit on at a time. Ooh, that doesn't take much at all. This one is called Polished Metal Metallic. So that metallic, you want to make sure and get those little metallic flakes mixed in. I'm just going to take my pointer here, just use that to drag over into all crevices of that chip. Here we are at another little chip. Just dab off most of the paint. This one is really long and thin. Ooh. I'm not even going to use that brush. I'm going to wipe off the tip of my pointer here and just use that. Just grab some out. Just use my pointer just to lay some in there. Yep, that'll be good enough. Doesn't take much. So here we are back at the car again, and it's time for another little coat here. Let's first just give this thing another shake. You can zoom in and I can still see a little bit of the bare metal through the first coat. That's why I want to give it a second coat. You can probably get away without it. But then we know it's good. I'm going to overlap up onto the existing paint a little bit, cover over that little sharp ridge. Try to make things kind of as round of lines as possible. No matter what, it's going to look like a patch. Unless you sand the whole door down and start fresh, it's going to look like a patch, but at least it should keep the door from rusting right there. And we'll give it another half hour and come back for a top coat. All right, now for the last step, we'll just take our paint pen. This has been drying for a while now, probably over an hour by now. Let me just give this one last shake, then we can put our clear coat on. So again, you just hold everything upright, and your brush is going to come out with the main body. Just kind of dab that off, and then you just want to put a real light coat over everything. And try to overlap if you can onto the pre-existing paint. That way everything's under one nice uniform even coat. And just grab a little bit more. And that'll do it. So that wraps this one up for today. I'll finish up that CRV hood off camera. I think you get the idea how it's done by now. Remember, prep well, that's the foundation to the whole process. Then 2 base coats about a half hour apart, and then a top coat a half hour after that. I'm gonna try to avoid getting these wet for a good 12 hours. It's not supposed to rain the rest of the day, so that's good. And then as far as going through a car wash or any kind of brushing or abrasion action on that, try to put that off for several days, maybe a week if you can. Give that paint some good time to cure really well. For more car care tips, tricks, and maintenance ideas, check out the playlist at the end. If in general you enjoy learning how stuff works and how to fix it when it doesn't, hit subscribe, tap that bell. We'll see you guys back for the next video.